Welcome to Plate Story Podcast. I'm Trista Polo from iwokeupawesome.com and I am your host. In this podcast, we hear the fascinating stories behind vanity plates all around the country. Today's guest is Stacey from New Paltz. Her license plate reveals something about her personality and how she spends her time. In fact, it led her to encounters with all kinds of interesting people and wildlife. Let's hear her story. Welcome, Stacey, to the Plate Story Podcast. Thank you so much for being on my show.
Thank you for having me, Trista.
I do need to share a little bit about how we came together because I believe in being authentic, and you certainly did not seek me out. I was having a meal with a friend at the bagel shop in New Paltz, and I was telling her about this podcast, which is a fairly new idea, and it's just sort of launching in 2020. And she pointed to your license plate through the window and said, that would be a great one. And I said, oh my gosh, you're so right. As soon as we leave here, I have these postcards that you might see in your door handle if you have a plate that I'd want to talk about. I said, I'm going to put a postcard in her door handle when I leave. Next thing I know, you were gone. She said, I think she was carrying boxes. I bet she went into the shipping place. I'm like, all right, well, I'll check. I go to the shipping place. You're not there. You end up passing me on the sidewalk, but I don't know it's you. Next thing I know, your car is driving in the parking lot and you're pulling out and driving away. So I run after you like a complete crazy person. I am waving my arms. I am yelling for you to stop and you don't see me. And so then I lost you. You were just too fast for me. So I decided if fate was going to intervene and had us talk, then something would happen that I would run into you again. And then my friend texted me and she said, she's in the grocery store. So now I feel like even more of a crazy person. I'm like, all right, so now I'm a stalker. I'm stalking you and your license plate. I think, what did I do? I caught you as you were going into another store. Like clearly you were running errands or something.
Yes.
And I accosted you out in public and asked you if you would be willing to be interviewed. And I'm so happy you said yes.
Well, I figured why not? It sounded like a very interesting concept that you had. So I'm happy to help you out.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And you actually are from New Paltz?
I'm not from New Paltz, but I live in New Paltz now. Yes, I've lived here full time since 2010.
Oh, okay, great. And you moved up here from the city?
I have lived in the city, but immediately before moving up here, I was living in northern New Jersey, and I was working out of an office in northern New Jersey and also an office in Manhattan.
What was your background before you moved up to the area?
For most of my adult life, I have been an attorney, a litigator. I went to Seton Hall Law School, and I did a clerkship for a year with a superior court judge in New Jersey, and then I immediately went to a large law firm that over the years just got larger and larger and larger, and I continued to work for that firm for about 15 years before I decided to turn my family's life upside down and move us to New Paltz so that I could and we could really be closer to the outdoors and have more opportunities for outdoor activities.
And that actually is perfect for your license plate. Now, your license plate, when I read it, I wasn't sure exactly what you were going for. It is NATURLVR. What does NATURLVR stand for?
Nature lover.
Nature lover. It's perfect.
Yes.
You moved here to the New Paltz area.
So.
Now, what made you choose New Paltz for being closer to nature? What was it that drew you to the area?
Well, to be honest, up until 2000, the fall of 2002, I had never heard of New Paltz. I had never been to New Paltz. I'd never been really anywhere in the Hudson Valley or in this immediate area. And I was in the Hoboken, New Jersey ski club, and I happened to come up here in the fall one day with some friends from the ski club to go hiking. And while we were out hiking, it was me and two other friends. we ran into a group of gentlemen that were clad in climbing gear. I really didn't know it was climbing gear at the time. I didn't know what it was, but they had packs and they had harnesses on and so on. And one of the gentlemen in this group knew one of my friends that I was hiking with. And so, everybody stopped and was talking, and this gentleman told us that there was a big party that evening and invited us to come, which we did. And we went to this party, and there was just climbing gear strewn all over this house because everybody had come to the party right from the cliff after a day of climbing, and everybody was trading climbing stories. And I really didn't even know that rock climbing was a sport at that time. So I was really intrigued and asked a lot of questions, and someone at the party volunteered to take me out climbing the next day if I wanted to drive back up here from Jersey. So I did. And I went out climbing, and in about 5 to 10 minutes, I was completely hooked. And so then I just made it a point to be here and be climbing as often as humanly possible. And obviously moving here made that a lot more accessible.
Yeah, I love that. Now, you have a family that you said you sort of drug to the Hudson Valley. Are they climbers now as well?
Well, at the time when I started coming up here, so I, like I said, I first was introduced to it at the pretty much at the end of the year in 2002, and then, winter came, and so I started coming up here very regularly in the spring of 2003, and at that time, my older boy, well, the only child that I had at that time, he was, I guess, how old was he? He was 2.5, 3. And he started climbing right away. And I'd say by the time he was 7 years old, he had surpassed many of my climber friends.
Wow.
He was definitely naturally gifted at it, and he really enjoyed it. And but then as he got to be a little bit older and he started to get more involved in school sports, intramural sports, organized sports teams, things like that, and just wanting to spend more time with his friends, none of whom climbed. And, of course, eventually he also discovered girls. So climbing went by the wayside, and it really wasn't until about a year ago that he sort of demonstrated a renewed interest in climbing. And this past summer, he spent more time climbing with me than he has in the last, 8 or so years combined. And then I have another son who is 10 and a half, and he really loves to don the helmet and the harness and the shoes, but he's kind of more interested in walking around the base of the cliff and collecting rocks and caterpillars than he is at actually going anywhere, climbing. So, yes. And my husband will climb occasionally for my benefit, but it's not his thing. He's got other things. This is not one of them.
Well, it's nice that you can have your family participate in the way that they enjoy. And it sounds like they're not completely like, have fun, Mom. Let us know when you get back.
Right.
Yeah, that's really great. Now, you've actually taken your love of climbing and brought it into some work that you're doing for an organization. Can you share a little bit about that?
Sure. Well, so I don't practice law anymore. I'm sort of unofficially, officially, I don't know, retired from that. And so I have a lot more free time. And one of the things that I really enjoy doing is volunteering with the New York chapter of the Adaptive Climbing Group. The Adaptive Climbing Group enables both mentally and or physically challenged or disabled individuals to experience the joy of climbing, both indoors, which primarily for me, when I'm participating, it's at the Gravity Vault in Poughkeepsie, which is just across the river, and also outside here in the Gunks, at the cliff here in Gardner, New York. We get people, from the van into their wheelchairs, if they're in a wheelchair, and we get them to the base of the cliffs, and we get them climbing, and it's just really, really fun and really rewarding to see, the joy that they have in doing that, and, being able to do something that they probably before that point didn't think they would be able to do it. So it's definitely it takes a team of people to make this happen. And the gentleman that I'm friendly with that heads this project up indoors at the Gravity Vault is Michael McKelney, and my climbing friend who also is a guide here who kind of spearheads the outdoor component is Doug Ferguson.
That's great. And so people can go online and check out the adaptive climbing group if they want to volunteer, donate, or provide any kind of resources that could help them further their mission.
Definitely. Yep.
Awesome.
Yep. It's every Tuesday evening at 6, from 6 to 9 at the Gravity Vault in Poughkeepsie. And you can go online. They have a Facebook presence, and they also have a website. It's ACG, Adaptive Climbing Group, and you can anybody can. You don't need to be a climber. You do need to know how to belay, but that's something that can be taught relatively easily, whether you're doing it inside or outside. So you really don't need a lot of climbing experience. You don't need any climbing experience to volunteer and help. And it's just really enjoyable.
That's a very cool group. I had not heard of it, but I'm not really in the climbing scene, so I love hearing about ways that we can help people have experiences they might not otherwise have had an opportunity to experience.
Yes, exactly. And my older son, Zach, the little one is too young, but my older son, Zach, who just turned 18, he has volunteered both indoors and outdoors with me as well. So it's really been nice for me to share that with him.
I love it. Now, your license plate clearly reflects your love of nature, climbing. You said that you ski as well. What other hobbies do you like to do outdoors?
Well, I really, really love running here. There's in the Mohonk Preserve and the Minnewaska Preserve, there's hundreds of miles of trails through the woods here. And so that's something I do pretty much every day. I don't enjoy running on the road. It's not that great for the joints and knees and ankles and hips and all of that stuff. And there's just something really magical about being in the woods and running, and whether it's snowing or raining slightly. I've come upon bears when I've been running. It's just always a really, I do it in the morning, and it's just the best way I can think of to start the day. I can pretty much handle anything that comes my way after a good run in the morning.
I love that. I have a friend who is also a runner, and she never misses a day, no matter what the weather. She's never mentioned bears, though. What do you do when you come across a bear? Isn't running going to make them think you're running away from them?
Yeah, well, I have to say it's only happened to me once, but it was just one of these. I mean, it's something that I will never forget the experience as long as I live. And I was actually running back to the West Traps parking lot from Owasting Falls, and as I was running, I heard some rustling in the woods, and I knew immediately that it was not the rustling of a squirrel or a chipmunk, because I hear that. I hear that constantly when I'm running. This was a very different rustling. And all of a sudden, I don't know, maybe like 20 feet or so from me, there was a little absolutely adorable bear cub. And I think that he or she, not sure, was very nervous at seeing me, and so climbed about 15 feet up the trunk of a tree. And I just stopped and was standing there, and I was looking at him or her, and he or she was looking back at me, and I don't know whether it was out of curiosity or just because it was a baby and it got tired of holding on to the trunk of the tree. But after just a few moments, it slowly kind of crawled back down to the base of the tree and just sat there at the base of the tree. And I sat on the trail, and we were about 20 feet from each other. And we were just staring at each other, and my heart was pounding a mile a minute. And I was just thinking, this is the coolest experience I've ever had in my life. And then all of a sudden, I heard a very loud thumping sound. And I knew immediately that this was Mama Bear, probably Mama or Papa Bear, coming. And that was my sign to skedaddle out of there. So I just got up and very slowly started tiptoeing away, and then walking away, and then, eventually back to running. And it was pretty cool.
Wow. You're very brave.
I don't know about that.
Were you nervous? Were you scared? It sounds like you just enjoyed the spiritual connection you had with this cub
Oh,
more than being afraid.
yeah. No, I was not afraid. I was not remotely nervous. I just was very just caught up in the magic, I think, of the moment, and just feeling so fortunate, to have had that experience. So,
Well, I'm glad you
yeah,
didn't have to face off with the parent. That probably would have been a very
me too.
different experience. And I'm glad that you made it out
Yeah.
okay. But what a cool experience to have that. And like I
Yes,
could,
it was.
as you're sharing it, I can feel myself reacting like you're still feeling
Hmm.
like you're right there. Like
Yeah,
it's really
yeah,
still present
yeah.
for you.
Definitely was a moment that stays with you. I think, I know a lot of my friends up here have had more encounters than I have had, and I think everybody, when they, when you get so close to something in nature that you don't really ever expect to be so close to, unless you're, on safari or at a zoo or something like that, just to be out and have such a raw experience in nature, pretty awesome.
Yeah. And maybe because, I mean, you said that you were a litigator, right? When you were an attorney, maybe that
Yes.
you've been across from some opponents before, so maybe that prepared you mentally.
Yeah. Yes. Uh-huh. Not as cute. Not
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 as
nearly as cute as this one.
No, definitely not. Definitely not. So does anybody ever approach you about your vanity plate, or am I the first person to ask you about it?
I wouldn't say you're the first, but I wouldn't say a lot of people do. People see it is, and they know what it means, and yeah. So I haven't gotten a lot of attention or comments certainly about it.
And you said you sort of aren't really sure why you chose it. Would you choose it again? Are you glad you have it?
Yeah. I don't know. I like it. I just feel like it personalizes my vehicle, which, otherwise your vehicle really doesn't have anything too personal generally about it. It just personalizes it a little bit. So I kind of like it. I never had a vanity plate before, but I like this one.
Yeah, that's great. I like it too. We've talked about the license plate, which I so appreciate you sharing that
Sure.
information with me.
Mm-hmm.
I'd
Yep.
love to learn a little bit more about you, the person behind the plate.
Oh
So,
boy.
yeah.
Okay.
So, I know we talked a little bit about how you are no longer working as an attorney. And that you do some things that are volunteer. So we covered that.
Yep.
What are you reading right now? Are you reading anything interesting, fun that you'd like to share?
Well, I am now, as I am always, for the most part, reading 3 books at one time. Well, really reading two and listening to one, because I listen to books while I'm running. So the
Mm.
book that I'm listening to right now, I actually just started it on my run this morning, and it's a memoir by a woman named Adrienne Brodeur, and it's called Wild Game. And so far, so good, although very early in the book right now. And I am reading Beneath a Scarlet Sky, which is by Mark Sullivan, and it's a really interesting book about a young Italian boy who helps the Jews escape Italy into Switzerland during the German occupation. And then I'm reading Empress Orchid by An Chi Min, which is also very interesting. And it's about a young Chinese girl who becomes one of the emperor's concubines, and what life is like for her. So all interesting, but very different.
Well, that's great. Now, anything you'd recommend for people who like to read? It sounds like historical fiction, nonfiction kind of stuff.
I really like if I had to choose a favorite type of book to read, and I'm almost always reading this kind of book. I love reading books about women in other cultures. That's sort of my favorite read, just because I think it's fascinating, and it's just really, really interesting. So hence the Empress Orchid, which is a fiction story, but really it's based loosely on many, many true stories, because that actually did happen and probably still does happen. It's just interesting to see how differently some women live in different parts of the world and during different times.
Yes, absolutely. And what do you attribute your success in life to?
100% to my parents. Definitely both of my parents. My parents were very different from one another and really complemented one another. And it was just the perfect combination of tough and love. I mean, I did get love obviously from both of them, but my mom was definitely more of the nurturing type. And my father was, the one that really pushed me, I'd say, the most, and had really high expectations. And there was never any doubt about what those expectations were. And so I would say I'm very lucky that I had two wonderful parents.
So do you have a similar parenting style to the way you were parented?
I would say I am. If you asked my kids, it would probably depend on the day. I think that they would say that I am a combination of both of those things in one person. So I can definitely be, I can be tough on them. And I definitely have very high expectations of them. And they know that I expect those expectations to be met. But, I think I'm also very loving and nurturing. And, my husband would probably tell you that he thinks I'm a little bit too coddling, especially given the fact that I have boys. He thinks I should be a little bit tougher.
Oh, okay. So then my most important question is that style working as well on your boys as it did for you? Because I know you can have two kids raised the same exact way and get different results, right?
Yes. Well, and I have an 8-year age differential there. So my younger boy is 10 and the older boy is 18. So, especially I think with respect to the younger one, whose name is Max, it's, remains to be seen how well my parenting is working on him. But so far so good. And the older one, I could not ask for more. He's just everything I could ever have dreamed for in a child, and 10 times more. So I'm very, very proud of him.
That's awesome.
How he's turned out so far.
So far, so good.
Hopefully he doesn't take a big dip.
Sounds like he's on a good trajectory. So
he is.
Step in the right direction. That's good.
Yeah.
That's really good.
Yeah.
Now, I know that the next question is about how you stay motivated. You said that you're so loyal to running. You do it every single day, rain, sleet, snow, etc.
Yeah.
How do you stay motivated?
Yes. My ex-husband used to call me the U.S. Postal Service of running because I would go out no matter the weather. But really just because I love running. So how I stay motivated, I think that I am also somewhat vain. And, so I it's really important to me to be in good shape, and to be healthy and feel strong. But also when it comes to running or climbing or any of the outdoor, physical activities I do, it's really kind of a mental health thing for me as well. Especially with the running, I find it very meditative, especially on days that I'm maybe not listening to a book and I'm just, running in the woods and it's quiet. I'm not good at sitting meditation or anything else, but I find that running can be very meditative. And so even though I might be physically tired at the end of a run, mentally, I feel very refreshed. So, and you know how good you feel after a workout. So you just keep doing it.
Yes. It creates its own self-fulfilling prophecy with that, for sure.
Yes, definitely.
That's great.
Yep.
And so do you do anything else to stay healthy besides running? Is that your main regimen?
Well, running, I do almost every day, regardless of the time of year. As you know, I really love to climb. That's why I moved here. But I don't ice climb anymore. So really the climbing is relegated to just anymore. Well, I did. I was never a big ice climber, but I have gone ice climbing, but I had a really bad experience the last time I went ice climbing, so I haven't done it since. So that I really just do in the warmer months, and also skiing and snowboarding, obviously, just in the winter months. So it's nice to have different things that you can do during different seasons. There's always something always something fun to do.
Sure. Now, but in terms of like diet, supplementation, do you do anything like that to support your body as well?
I take vitamins, and I think I have a wicked sweet tooth, unfortunately. But apart from that, I'm a very healthy eater. I love vegetables. I was vegetarian for a really long time. I'm not any longer, but I love vegetables. It's always the first thing I'll eat on my plate. And, I just try to really practice what I preach with my kids. I'm a bit of a Nazi with them in the food department. I went with a friend, and we took our kids to the movies actually yesterday afternoon, and my son wanted candy. And he also wanted a soda, and I was trying to push a bottle of water on him, and he really wanted the soda. So we made a deal that he could have the candy and the soda. Kind of made me cringe. But the trade-off was that he would have no sugar today. And, you have to, when you have kids, especially when they're young like that, you have to lead by example a little bit. So, I can't be sitting around eating bonbons all day, depriving them.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
Yes. Absolutely. There's something I wrote on Facebook yesterday. It was about my dog. It was just, I was struck by something someone else said, like we eat whatever we want. And then our dogs, it's like strict diet, no junk food. And it's like, eat as I say, not as I chew.
Yes.
But it doesn't work quite as well with kids.
That's true. Yes, definitely. Yes, definitely.
Yes. So what do you do to stay mindful? It sounds like running is really what you do to stay mindful. Do you have any other practices that keeps your head in the game?
Practices? Well, I do yoga. Yoga is a mindful practice,
for sure.
I would say. And it's if you've done yoga for a long time, or you do it often, I think it's much easier to kind of carry that mindfulness with you off the mat and through the rest of your day. But I also just think that when you have kids, it almost forces you to stay mindful. It forces you to stay in the moment, because you just have to be present for them. Mm-hmm. So I think, being in the moment helps to keep you mindful. Although some days I feel not mindful at all. I feel very scattered. Yeah, mindfulness, I guess, just physical, exercise of one type or another, and just trying to practice gratitude every day, and counting my blessings, because I'm, just very grateful to have my health and have, healthy and happy family life and all of that.
Yeah, you sound like you work hard for all of that. So it's well earned, well deserved.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. And then finally, what's one question you'd like to ask me? I figured to give you the chance to turn the tables on me, since I've been doing all the questioning.
Well, obviously, I want to know whether you have a vanity plate. What is the story behind it, if you have one?
Ah, that's a great question. I do have a vanity plate. The vanity plate is Plate Story. I bet there's a story behind all these vanity plates out there. Not just what does that actually mean, because I can't figure it out with the weird combo that the person chose.
Right. Mm-hmm.
But also, what's the story behind your choice? Like, what did you go through to come up with it? So I come up with this wonderful idea. I name the podcast, and then I realize, hold on, I'm doing a podcast about plate stories. Somebody's going to take that name. I better get it from my plate before someone else does. So my lesson of the ready, fire, aim mentality that I have, that sometimes you do need to aim again after you fire.
Yeah.
Thank you for asking that.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Good. That's interesting.
I appreciate you sharing the story behind your license plate and a little bit about your love of nature. Is there anything else you'd like to share before we conclude?
No, I don't think so. Just, thank you. And it was fun.
All right, great. It's been fun for me as well. And I really appreciate you sharing that bear story. I think that was the highlight for me. And next time I see you around New Paltz, I will wave politely instead of chasing after you. Thank you so much, Stacey. Thanks for being on the Plate Story podcast. Thanks for joining us on today's episode of Plate Story Podcast. If you would like to nominate the owner of a license plate, including you, visit platestory.com. That's PL8STORY.com and give us the details. I'm Trista Polo from iwokeupawesome.com, wishing you well on the road to your next adventure. Bye-bye now.